Hey everyone, my name is Mitch Schroeder and I'm the designer of Buddy Cop, a cooperative card game for 1 or 2 players. Today in this video I'm going to walk through exactly how to set up a game of Buddy Cop. So first thing I'm going to want to do is place the operation board in the center of the table. That's this black board here, and as you can see it has slots for all the cards you're going to need to run a particular game of Buddy Cop. I'm then going to set up an operation. So the operation is the scenario for the game. It's going to tell you what the criminals are doing and how they're going to win. It's going to tell you how cops are going to be able to stop them. And it's also going to give you some flavor text to explain the story of what's happening. So for this particular setup, I'm going to choose the Parasol Front, which is the introductory operation for the base game. I'm going to take the setup card and place it over in the setup and rules slot. I'm going to take the operation condition card and place it in the operation condition slot, and then I'll be left with 4 locations. I'm going to shuffle those cards up and place them into the 4 location slots at the bottom of the board. 1, 2, 3, and 4. After that, I'm going to choose one of the criminal factions. In this situation, I'm going to choose the Associates. They are the more introductory of the factions from the base game. And I'm going to take the Boss card and place it into the Boss slot. You can tell it's the Boss card because it has a crown in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's just going to go into that crown slot there. I'll then shuffle up the remaining criminal deck, and then I'm going to spawn 2 cards, or 2 criminals, for each cop in the game. So I'll be setting up for a solo playthrough, so I will just spawn 2 criminals. When spawning criminals, you're going to look at the bottom right of the card, and that's going to tell you where to place them. So this guy goes into location 4. Put him underneath the location there. And this one goes into location 3. Once I've completed that, I'm then going to finish the operation setup of the game by completing the special setup rules on the operation setup card. In this case, it says each cop places 1 influence on a criminal. Since I'm playing solo, that will just be 1 influence, and I'll place it onto that criminal there. And that will complete the operation and criminal setup of the game. After that, I can set up my cops. So in this case, because I'm playing solo, I'm going to choose to play Ricky Lou. I'm going to take his standee, his deck, and his player board, placing them on the table. And then I'm going to take his standee and put it on any location that I choose. So in this case, I'm going to place him over here on the abrasion facility, which is above the criminal that has that influence. And then I'm going to shuffle up his deck and fill his cop board from left to right cards. Then I'm going to take 2 grit, placing it onto the grit slot on his player board. Oops. See that there? And that's going to wrap up setup Buddy Cop. Buddy Cop is a cooperative game, which means that players are going to win together or they're going to lose together. For the players to win, all they have to do is defeat the boss. However, if any cop is defeated, or if the criminal faction is able to complete the objective as indicated by the operation, the players will lose. Buddy Cop is played over a number of rounds, each broken down into 3 distinct phases: the cop phase, the criminal phase, and the operation phase. It's in the cop phase that players will play their cards and take their actions. After they've taken all their actions and exhausted all their resources, the criminal phase takes place, in which each criminal will be activated once from left to right. After the criminal phase is the operation phase. In the operation phase, players will activate each location from left to right, they will spawn new criminals, and then they will activate the operation condition card. As you may expect, the bulk of the game takes place during the cop phase. So in this phase, the players will be piecing together exactly how to use the cards on their cop board most efficiently, whether it's through gaining resources or taking actions in order to stop the criminals from completing their objective. Each card on the cop board presents players with 2 choices. They can either encounter or they can prepare. To prepare, the player simply discards the card and takes the minor action at the bottom of the card where it says prepare. To encounter, a player must discard grit equal to the grit cost of a card, and then take the major action at the top of the card where it says encounter. The grit cost for a card can be found on the player board. Each card is in a slot, and at the bottom of that slot you'll see a number of icons indicating the number of grit that must be discarded to play that card. So as you can see in the leftmost slot, there is no icon. that card can be played each round for free. However, as we move farther right, cards become more expensive, with the rightmost card costing 2 grit. In this situation, I could prepare this card by discarding it and gaining the resources at the bottom, 1 grit and 1 cover. This will give me additional resources to help me play more actions in the future. It also doesn't cost anything for me to do that. If I want to encounter with the card beside it, however, I must pay the associated grit cost in order to take that action. In this case, the grit cost would be 2 grit. Discard 2 grit, discard that card, and then take the action at the top of the card. It tells me that I can encounter 2, and I may then discard a card from my cop board to add 3 dice to this encounter. So I can discard an additional card and roll 5 dice. When rolling for an encounter, I can only target criminals in my current location. In this case, it's location 3, the abrasion facility, so I'll only be able to target the assault that's also in location 3. After rolling the dice, I will resolve them using the icons indicated. Be a hit, which would put 1 progress onto the enemy, a critical, which will allow me to resolve the critical effect on my cop board, in this case gaining 2 successes or 2 hits. There's also a hunch symbol, which allows me to gain the hunch resource, which I'll need to complete objectives later in the game. Or, if I already have a hunch, I can discard it to turn a hunch into a hit. There's also a symbol that has a double icon, a success, and a hunch. If an encounter places a number of progress onto the target equal to or exceeding their threshold found at the top left of the card is defeated, and they're discarded. If there are no criminals in my location, in order to target and encounter additional criminals, I must move. I can move to any location of my choice by discarding cover equal to the cover cost at the bottom right of that location. So, to encounter this backup, I would need to move into the production floor by discarding 1 cover and moving there. I can now encounter the backup. On my turn, I can move as many times as I wish, or play as many cards as I wish, as long as I'm able to discard the necessary resources. If I don't have those resources, or if I choose to end my turn is over, and then slide any cards remaining on my cop board as far left as they will go, and then I gain any resources listed in the prepared effect. So if I have a card on my far right at the end of my turn, it will slide to the left, becoming cheaper for next turn, and I will still gain, in this case, the 1 cover. We'll then refill my cop board from left to right, gain 2 grit for next turn, and that will end the cop turn. Once the cop turn is over, the criminal turn begins. Each criminal remaining on the board will activate from left to right. To activate, each criminal will resolve the icons in the top right of their card. In this case, this enemy will attack at range 0, so in its location. That attack will target 1 cop, dealing 4 damage, and then this criminal would move to be with the next nearest criminal. At the moment, there are no other criminals on the board, so this criminal would just stay put. I only have 1 cover, so I can discard that 1 cover to reduce the damage dealt by 1, and I will take the remaining 3 damage. After each criminal is activated, players will move on to the operation turn. In the operation turn, players will activate each location from left to right. Most locations will only need to be activated if there is a cop in that location. For example, this location says each cop in this location must discard 2 cover or suffer 1 damage. Since there's no cop in this location, this can just be ignored. There are exceptions to this, however. This location has an ongoing effect. Each criminal in this location deals +1 damage. This ongoing effect would take place even during the criminal turn, so players must be wary of that. For my current location, each cop in this location must place 2 cover on a criminal or suffer 1 damage. I don't want to suffer any more damage this turn because I've already taken 3, so I'll have no choice but to place 2 cover onto this criminal. Cover on a criminal works the same way as cover on a cop. When I encounter this criminal and want to place progress on them, I must first use my progress to discard this cover, 1 progress for 1 cover, before I can actually place progress onto that criminal. Once players have activated each location, they will then spawn criminals, spawning 2 criminals per player. In this case, since I'm playing solo, I will just be spawning 2 criminals, placing them in the location indicated just as we did during setup. After I've spawned 2 criminals, I will then activate the Operation Condition card. That will wrap up the operation turn, Buddy Cop. Once the operation turn has been completed, a new round will begin, starting with the cop turn. Now, you may have noticed that earlier I said players can only win if they defeat the boss. However, currently there's no way to interact with the boss. Players can only target criminals in locations. The boss isn't in a location. He's in hiding. The only way to draw the boss out of hiding is to fulfill any requirements listed on the rules card. Next to the crown at the bottom of the card, it reads, if each location has 1 P influence, or 1 per player, spawn the boss in a random location. To find a random location, you simply draw a card from the criminal deck and place the boss in the indicated location at the bottom right. So in this case, he'll be placed in location 1. Now that he's in a location, he can be encountered just like any other criminal. However, the boss cannot be encountered if there is another criminal in his location. So before you can encounter the boss, you must defeat this sniper. Once the sniper is defeated, however, then you'll be able to encounter the boss. When a boss activates, he's going to activate just as any other criminal, using the icons at the top right. However, his activations are usually a little more terrifying than a normal criminal. So once he's out, you'll want to defeat him as quickly as possible. Defeat the boss, and you win the game. The boss can be defeated, just like any other criminal, by putting progress on him equal to or exceeding his threshold at the top left. However, you will notice that there's a P in the top left, indicating that that's the number of progress you need per player. So in a 1-player game, Anatoly needs 7 progress. In a 2-player game, however, he will need 14. Get that on him, and you win the game.